The Army replaced the M1911 in 1985. That is the official story.
This slide-operated, semi-automatic, short recoil, tipping barrel, locked breech pistol is arguably the most iconic handgun in history.
After 75 years of service, the military declared John Browning's pistol obsolete, signed contracts with Beretta, and issued the 9mm M9 to every branch of the armed forces. The transition was complete. The decision was final. Except, the Marines kept carrying the 1911 into combat for another 30 years. Not all Marines, not in every unit, but the ones who spent their careers in the most dangerous, close-quarters roles, the ones whose job description assumed the enemy would be close enough to touch, those Marines never stopped carrying the .45. They fought for it in procurement hearings. They had their armorers rebuild worn-out frames because replacement pistols weren't coming. Marine Special Operations and Reconnaissance units carried 1911 pattern pistols into Iraq and Afghanistan, while the soldiers fighting beside them carried the pistol the Pentagon had declared superior 20 years earlier. That gap between what the institution decided and what the men in the field refused to give up is the story. And it starts in the Philippines in 1899, where American soldiers learned something about pistol calibers that the procurement system would spend a century trying to forget. The U.S. Army entered the Philippine-American War armed with the .38 Long Colt revolver. It was a reasonable peacetime sidearm. Against Moro warriors in the southern islands of the Philippine archipelago, it was not enough. The Moro fighters of Mindanao and the Sulu archipelago were not like any enemy American soldiers had encountered. Their religious and cultural preparation for combat included practices that allowed some fighters to continue attacking after sustaining wounds that should have stopped them. Whether from adrenaline, drugs, or the documented effect of tight body bindings that slowed blood loss, Moro juramentados, fighters who had sworn an oath to die in battle, were documented cases where multiple .38 rounds failed to stop a charge in time. Men died because their pistols didn't hit hard enough to end the threat before the threat ended them. The Army's response was immediate and blunt. In 1904, they reissued .45 caliber revolvers from Civil War-era stocks, the Colt Single-Action Army, because a bigger bullet solved the problem that a better-designed small bullet did not. General William Crozier, then Army Chief of Ordnance, commissioned a formal study of stopping power and mandated that whatever replaced the .38 had to meet a specific terminal performance threshold. The Thompson-Lagarde tests of 1904, conducted by Colonel John T. Thompson and Major Louis Lagarde, tested multiple calibers on live cattle and human cadavers and concluded that the minimum acceptable service caliber was .45. That test shaped the next century of American military pistol doctrine. John Browning had already been working on a semi-automatic design. The Army's requirement gave him his specification. By 1910, the Colt Browning design was in competitive testing. On March 29, 1911, after a 6,000-round endurance trial, in which the pistol fired the last 1,000 rounds with a barrel cooled only by a bucket of water between strings, the Army formally adopted the Colt government model as the model of 1911. It was designed as the answer to a documented body count. The Marines who carried it into the 21st century hadn't forgotten that. The procurement system, it turned out, had. The official case for replacing the 1911 rested on three arguments. The pistol was worn out, the 9mm cartridge offered NATO standardization, and higher magazine capacity gave soldiers more options in a firefight. All three were true. None of them addressed what the Marines who carried the pistol actually needed it for. The 9mm Parabellum cartridge had been in European military service since 1902. NATO standardization was real and operationally useful. American soldiers working alongside German or British allies could scavenge pistol ammunition if they had to. The Beretta 92F, the pistol selected in 1985 after a competitive evaluation, was mechanically excellent, accurate, reliable, ergonomically modern. The selection board's conclusion that it outperformed the aging 1911 inventory was not dishonest. What the selection board did not weigh heavily enough was what the round actually did when it hit someone at close range. In conventional infantry combat, pistols are secondary weapons. A soldier whose rifle runs dry draws his pistol as a last resort. For that role, 15 rounds of 9mm versus 7 rounds of 45 ACP is a meaningful advantage. But Marines in Force Reconnaissance, and later in MARSOC, Marine Corps Forces Special Operations Command, formally established in 2006, were not using pistols as last resorts. They were using them as primary weapons in confined spaces: boarding operations, room clearance, vehicle searches. In those roles, the stopping power of the round was not a secondary consideration. The documented concerns surfaced quickly after the M9 entered service. After the 1986 Sergeant York disaster, a separate procurement failure in Army air defense, congressional scrutiny of Pentagon procurement sharpened broadly, and the terminal performance gap between the two cartridges was not a matter of speculation. The restriction commonly cited on expanding military bullets comes from the 1899 Hague Declaration, not the Geneva Conventions. The U.S. military, choosing to comply with those Hague principles for conventional operations, was locked into ball ammunition, the least effective projectile geometry available, in a cartridge that already delivered less energy on target than what it had just retired. The Marine units that understood that equation refused to accept it. In 1985, the Marine Corps did not have the authority to simply decline the M9. The Joint Chiefs had mandated interoperability. The procurement was Army-led. The Marines adopted the Beretta alongside every other branch, drew their allocation, and signed the paperwork. What happened next was quieter than a formal objection. Marine armorers at Camp Pendleton and Quantico began maintaining 1911 pistols that, by the official inventory, should have been retired. Worn frames were rebuilt. Springs were replaced. Gunsmiths within the Marine Depot Maintenance Command kept guns in service that the supply chain no longer supported with parts. The Marine Corps Rifle Team, one of the premier competitive shooting programs in the American military, had never stopped using the 1911 for pistol competition and provided institutional cover for maintaining armorers who actually knew how to work on them. The special operations community provided another avenue. When Marine Force Reconnaissance units began working alongside Naval Special Warfare and Army Special Forces in the 1990s, they found a culture of quiet exception already established. Field-level decisions to carry what worked rather than what was issued. The Marines were not inventing a workaround. They were joining one. A formal new procurement arrived in July 2012 when Marine Corps Systems Command awarded Colt the Close Quarter Battle Pistol contract, producing the M45A1, chambered in 45 ACP, built by Colt, and issued specifically to Marine Corps Forces Special Operations Command and Marine Reconnaissance units. The procurement documentation cited the need for improved terminal performance in close quarters environments. It did not mention that some of those units had been carrying functional 1911s informally for years before the official contract was signed. The institutional lesson embedded in that procurement was uncomfortable. 30 years after the military declared the 1911 obsolete, the branch whose operators most depended on what a pistol actually did had gone back to Colt in the same caliber their grandfathers had demanded after the Philippines. The procurement system had spent 3 decades solving a problem that the men in the field had never stopped solving for themselves. Fallujah, November 2004. The 1st Marine Division, reinforced by Army and Iraqi security force elements, launched Operation Phantom Fury, the second and decisive battle for the city. It was the largest urban combat operation American forces had conducted since Hue City in 1968. House-to-house fighting. Rooms cleared with grenades and rifle fire at distances where you could hear a man breathing before you shot him. Marine infantrymen who went into Fallujah carried what they were issued. The M9 was the standard sidearm. Meanwhile, throughout the Iraq War, SOC 1911s remained in the inventory of Force Recon and Special Mission units that had been running them since the late 1980s. Not as a formal procurement decision, as a maintenance decision. Armorers kept the frames running. Operators kept them holstered. The 2002 American handgunner reporting on the Quantico Precision Weapons section confirmed nearly 800 of those pistols moving through the armorer pipeline. with a parts list that read like a custom gunsmith's catalog. Those guns went to Fallujah, they went to Ramadi, they went to the river cities of Anbar province through campaigns that lasted years. The units carrying them weren't making a statement, they were making a calculation. In a contested room, a pistol is drawn when a rifle is empty or slung, when there is no time to reload, when the distance is measured in arm's length. At that distance, the difference between a round that stops a man immediately and a round that stops him after he has taken 2 more steps is the difference between going home and not going home. Marine operators who worked through those years in Iraq, through Anbar province, through the grinding campaigns of 2005 and 2006, knew this from experience that preceded any laboratory test. Some of them knew it from conversations with older Marines who had carried the 1911 in Vietnam and drawn the same conclusion from different terrain. The dark truth buried inside the M9 transition was this: the military had optimized the pistol selection for the wrong scenario. NATO standardization mattered. Magazine capacity mattered. The ergonomics of the M9 were genuinely better for a soldier whose primary weapon was a rifle and whose pistol would be fired, if ever, in a moment of desperation at moderate range. For that soldier, and that soldier represented the vast majority of personnel who drew a sidearm, the M9 was a defensible choice. But the men whose professional lives revolved around the moments where a pistol was the primary weapon, where the engagement was inside a room and the threat was close enough that shot placement mattered less than weight of metal, those men had been left out of the calculus. Adequate for most, inadequate for the few who needed it most. The Marines who kept their 1911s weren't being sentimental, they were being accurate. The M45A1 entered formal service with MARSOC and Marine Reconnaissance in 2012. Few people watching that July contract signing understood how short the run would be. In 2017, the Army, the same branch that had led the M9 adoption in 1985, began fielding the Sig Sauer M17 and M18 as the modular handgun system. The M17 fires the 9mm cartridge, but alongside standard ball ammunition, the Army fielded the M1153 special purpose round, described as appropriate where reduced overpenetration is necessary. Projectile technology had advanced to the point where modern 9mm loads substantially closed the stopping power gap that had driven the Marine objection in the first place. The FBI had reached the same conclusion in 2014, after a comprehensive review of wound ballistics, readopting the 9mm after years with larger calibers, citing improved projectile design as the reason performance was now acceptable for service use. That sequence has a shape, and the shape is an indictment. The military in 1985 switched calibers without switching ammunition doctrine. They took a 9mm pistol and loaded it with ball ammunition because treaty compliance and supply chain simplicity required it. The Marines who refused to follow that transition were right that the switch created a gap. The eventual solution, better projectiles, not a different pistol, proved the concern was legitimate without proving the specific weapon was necessary. By October 2022, the Marine Corps completed the retirement of its last M45A1s, replacing them with the 9mm M18. The 45 was gone from American military service for the first time in over a century. What remained was the argument, the one the field had been making since 1985, the one the procurement system took 30 years to partially acknowledge, the one that still has no clean resolution. Procurement systems optimize for the average case. They have to. You cannot build a military around the specific requirements of your most capable units at the expense of equipping everyone else. That is not corruption. That is the arithmetic of mass logistics. But war is not average. The moments that determine whether a man comes home are not average moments. And the men who understood that, who kept their 1911s running with unofficial parts and quiet institutional tolerance, were not being difficult. They were being precise about what their profession actually required. Marine Scout Sniper Gunnery Sergeants with combat deployments in Iraq argued the case before procurement panels in the mid-2000s, practical, specific arguments about what a .45 did in close quarters that a 9mm ball round did not. They were not the first. They were one generation in a long line of Marine NCOs who forced the institution to listen. Not loudly, not politically, just by continuing to carry what worked until someone in the system wrote it into a contract. The M45A1 procurement in 2012 was not a sentimental gesture toward tradition. It was an institution finally writing down what its best operators had been saying for 30 years. The history of what American soldiers and Marines actually carried, and why the men who carried it had to fight the system as hard as they fought the enemy, is what this channel is built on. Subscribe to Warfare Unclassified. There is more coming.